Hello and welcome. Happy International Women's Day. I know it was yesterday, but every day we should be celebrating a woman. So today we wanted to give a platform to inspiring women from different fields. Today's discussion was going to be moderated by one of those inspiring women, Ayça Aydoğdu, but she's not feeling very well to join us today. So I will be doing that instead. But I wanted to wish her a speedy recovery, and we miss you here, Ayça. I'm Aslı Atlaş, international news producer at TRT World, based in London. And I will be joined by several Turkish women across the UK society to tell us their inspirational stories and achievements. Our conversation today is organized by the Circle Foundation in the UK. It's a non-profit. The theme for this year's International Women's Day is Break the Bias. Now, breaking the bias can mean various things. A world that's inclusive, equal, and free of discrimination. But unfortunately, still in 2022, we can't say we are quite there yet. And the result of the pandemic has also proven to be so. Not only the pandemic, but also all of us watching the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and women and children fleeing the war to an uncertain future, but showing a resilience and strength that's beyond words. Although we mark this as International Women's Day, I hope one day, not so far, we will be able to truly celebrate it. Today, I will be talking to several women from different sectors and backgrounds. First, let's welcome Didem and Cagla. I would like to introduce them. Didem Ün Ateş. She's a woman in technology, and she is the head of applied strategy, data and L at the CDO office of Microsoft Customer and Partner Solutions. And Cagla Bekbolet. She is the managing partner of Egon Zehnder's London office and is a trusted advisor to CPOs and some of the largest fast-moving consumer goods companies around the world. And thank you so much for joining us. Cagla, I see you are here with us, but are we waiting for Didem? I think she will be joining us soon. So while we wait for her, I would like to start with you. So I've already said this year's theme is breaking the bias. And what does that mean for you to break the bias?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be in the company digitally of so many inspiring women and men and friends. You know, look, we all have so many biases, conscious and unconscious. I came to the UK when I was 22. And I was working on a trading floor in the city of London, one of the very few women and a very young woman. And there were, I'm sure, many biases. And I'm sure I was a bit too naive and too young to recognize even half of the biases that were held against me. And I suppose in a way that that helped me because I didn't feel confined by what I imagined people thought I would be like. And so to this day, I have a lot of empathy and sympathy to those who really hold on to their unconscious biases when they look at talent, when they look at their colleagues or their friends or their societies. And it's a really long battle to even recognize them, let alone to lean into them and to change their perspective.
But you were successful to do that. And do you think women are better leaders than men? I mean, what differs you in your leadership style to men that makes you successful?
Look, I don't think inherently women are better leaders. I think, you know, we do a lot of research in my profession. And one thing I would say really identifies and is a marker for future leadership potential is an individual's ability to really be very curious about themselves, so they can be very curious about other people without holding on to their biases, misconceptions. And it sounds very easy, but it's actually a very hard thing to do, is to constantly seek feedback about yourself, to be open to all possibilities, not to think that you've got the right answer, and sometimes to admit you're wrong. And you know, some women do it really well, and some men do it really well. And I think in the pandemic, we have certainly seen there's a huge need for leaders to be able to do that. Because let's be honest, none of us had a playbook for this. None of us had any idea what we were doing. We probably still don't, right? We're coming out of one pandemic into a very unknown world environment, especially in Europe right now. So the idea of really staying open, sensing your environment, testing different things, experimenting, learning from them, admitting you're wrong, listening to your team, I think these qualities have proven to be the right qualities to lead during a crisis period. And I think we're seeing a lot of impressive men and women rise up to the challenge, and equally some very impressive men and women fall under that pressure and crumble in the last 2 years. So I think it's been a very interesting period for leadership. I would say one thing that I would encourage women to think about in their leadership is compassion and care, true care, has also emerged as a real requirement from leaders, not just in words or processes, but in everything that you do. And again, it's a generalization, I would say. Probably women have an inclination to show more of that in their personal lives. So I would encourage women leaders on this call to think about how to carry that to their professional lives and how to experiment with that. And that could really help them kind of develop into broader leaders.
Thank you for that. And speaking about the pandemic, like we have seen different responses from world leaders to this pandemic we have been facing. Do you think women leaders did better than men during this process?
Oh God, that's a trap question. Trap question. But it is true. I mean, I can't say statistically, but it is true that some women leaders have really emerged through this period.
Let's take New Zealand, for example.
Yeah. Let's take Finland as an example. I think they've shown compassion, they've shown openness, courage. What they had to do in New Zealand was very brave.
Yes.
Close all the borders and through. But it's all the inherent qualities that we were talking about earlier we've seen in her. And not pretending to know the answers. I think that's been kind of the other thing. And I hope those that haven't done well, men and women, I hope those leaders have actually learned from this experience.
Yeah, we all learned from our experiences during the last 2 years. But I must say here that only 21 countries are led by women out of 193. So do you think gender play a role in leadership?
I think a lot of things play a role in leadership. There's no evidence that gender is a determinant of good or bad leader. But I think some of the societal norms that are drilled in some cultures when girls are growing up versus when boys are growing up, I think might be helping them now on that kind of compassion, on the ability to relate to others. But these are if they have been part of the upbringing, these are qualities that need to be nurtured. These are qualities that constantly need to be developed. I don't think you can just rely on your gender and assume you'll be good at something. So for those who really want to develop as leaders, I would say it's like a bonsai tree. You need to nurture it. You need to constantly work on it and not assume you've ever arrived. Even if you've arrived in the role, you still need to evolve. You still need to learn.
I think a bonsai tree is like a really good reference there. I think it sums it up like quite good. And do you have any women role models?
I do, not from the business world. I would say I have two, my grandma and my mom, for different reasons, and they're very different women with very different paths. And I find myself very fortunate and lucky to be able to see their life journeys, their joys and their frustrations, and learn from both. as I've developed, and neither is in business. In fact, my grandmother didn't study beyond primary school. In her day, that wasn't the done thing. And my mother is a university professor and a tenured one, so they can't be more different in terms of their life journeys. But I would say are probably my role models.
I think, but that's a great example to give. Like, women don't have to be, you know, like very educated or like leaders in business life to lead a path in our lives. Like, I think we all take many women from our families, our grandmothers, our mothers, or some other woman in our like close circle as a role model. And I think that's how they shape our future and also shape our lives, right? So I am still waiting for Didem to join us. I wanted to join her in our discussion, but I think she's facing a problem to join. So meanwhile, I would like to ask you one last question. What guidance would you give to young women just starting their careers or about to choose their path?
So I think maybe one thing you should know is, although Didem's not here, I've known Didem for almost 40 years.
Oh my God.
We went to high school together. So we met each other when we were sort of ponytailed 10, 11-year-olds. And we grew up together, and both of us went to a girls' school back home in Turkey. And we really learned the power of independence, continuous learning, that curiosity, and the world can be your oyster if you really want to go for it. And for women who are in the beginning stages of their career, I would say keep learning. Even if you're unhappy in your job, it's a learning opportunity. Have that mindset. Don't feel ever wedded to a place just because you've been working there for so long. Once you open your mind to possibilities, you never know what will come through. And the other thing I would say is always look out for opportunities to develop yourself. And not just in terms of knowledge and skill, but also in terms of your worldview. You know, travel, try different things, meet different people, and they don't even have to be from business. Take every opportunity, because although something might feel trivial or unrelated in that moment in time, you might remember it 15 years later when you're in a very different environment. You might say, oh, that thing I did, or that person I had met, or that boss I hated, now I see why that was happening. So every opportunity, just make the most out of it, I would say.
Thank you very much. Like, thank you both for joining us today, but also giving us an insight. And I think that was a great example of you have given that your friendship with Didem, like two little girls, like many years ago, going to high school together, but both of them are like great women leaders today. And thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story with us today. And we will keep trying to bring Didem in, but let's see how it goes. But thank you very much. Oh, do I see? Oh yeah, here she is. Didem, hi, welcome. Oh, okay.
No, this is Olcay. Unfortunately, we can't. The problem is we are sending invitation to Didem. However, she doesn't receive our invite. So, but she's watching
so we would like
live.
To send her like our best wishes.
So while
thank you.
So,
thank
yes,
you so
we will
much.
send her
Cagla,
invitation. We will send her
invitation. It's been my pleasure as well. She's truly inspirational and far smarter than.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And now Olcay Bayir joins me. Olcay is a singer and a songwriter. So if you have listened to her before, you would be familiar with her amazing voice and her songs in like several languages. Olcay, hello, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, it's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. So this is how the Guardian magazine describes you. Proves that she is one of the finest, most intriguing singers on the British world music scene, with a style that reflects her complex history. So you are a woman who has broken all bias with your songs and lyrics, embracing minorities and reflecting on your own ethnicity. So Olcay is Kurdish with Alevi roots, partially Armenian, and describes herself as Anatolian. And thank you again for joining us today. Like, what an inspiring background. So what does breaking the bias mean to you?
As breaking biases, forget where you come from and all the races and all the and our learnings from the birth, and it's just actually love each other for what we are and who we are, and just for the fact that we're all human beings, and we all deserve to live in an equal world with an equal rights, and do what we like to do in life without any judgments, without any critiques of others, and we all have right to live in the way that we like, and actually having and that understanding for each other, with our choices, and without having any criticism towards each other. So breaking bias is actually live the way that you like and freely, and just be yourself, actually. And I don't believe in no one is superior than the other in this world. We are all equal. We are all special in our own ways, and for the fact that all the elements that makes us who we are, and so this is what it means to me.
And you have embraced your roots, and of course with your talent, and you have managed to do that. And tell us more about your journey, like your story, please.
Yes, I come from the minority community in Anatolia, and I was born in Turkey, as my origin is Kurdish, as you mentioned, with an Alevi roots, and since born in Turkey and grew up there, and my life journey brought me to the UK with my family, and I carried on most of my actually life journey in the UK, and I studied. I always had love for music. Actually, that's my family tradition, music, and my father and my brother is my first teachers in that sense. We have a very strong musical culture in our family, in our community. And I always wanted to study music, but I did not have a chance in Turkey. But when I came here, I carried on, and I finally had the chance that which was my dream, actually. And I started studying music at one of the London universities, Conservatoire, and I studied opera performances. And I did some opera performances over the years. After that, I always wanted to again one day start my own project with and do the music that I want to do, and which I believe that it gives the true reflection of myself and an explanation. So I knew that I will have a chance, and I managed to do that after the university by forming my first band, and lead it to my first album, and which means harmony, and since then my journey is just carrying on, and I did my second album in 2019, which was Dream, named Dream, and yeah, and I've been singing, writing, exploring, sharing, and yes, this is what I've been doing.
Great, thank you. But I believe you must have faced like some challenges during your journey. Can you tell me more about Can you tell me more about the challenges you have faced, but also how you were able to come over them?
The challenges, of course, especially being challenges in terms of like being a woman and being is this question is regarding to being a woman or being and a foreigner in the country that you live. So what kind of challenges, or during the pandemic? So because there are a lot of challenges that we've gone through,
all the time,
and I've been through.
of
So yes, especially lately, the challenges that we all face as musicians and art makers was the pandemic. You know, that we all had to just just stop what we love to do, and that was quite depressive for us. So, and being away from the stage, being away from what you love to do, it was just quite depressive, and also and it's quite not depressive, but it's also is a serious, like a trauma for us, because this is what we do, and if we cannot share what we do with other people, there is no meaning for us. We lost the meaning of our existence in a way. So it was very difficult period for most of us, and I am really happy that it's just come with nearly, and we just almost coming out of this very dark period, and we all started planning for the gigs, and then planning our future, what we're going to do next. So in a way, I'm really happy. But all these challenges, that being away from that what you love to do, and then in a way that losing your existence, reason for your existence, was really depressing. And it's not just me that share that. Actually, many art makers felt the same. So yeah.
Thank you so much. So I have already mentioned your amazing voice, and since we
Thank you so much.
and since we have a platform tonight to share your talent and your story with our viewers, do you mind singing a song for us tonight? I think all our viewers would be delighted. Would that be okay?
I would love to. It was just
we would be so happy if you don't mind.
Okay, all right. It's not going to be a long one though.
No,
it just will be very short. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. Right. Thank you.
Okay then. What shall I say? Eledimde şu gönlümden yar eledim. Eledimde şu gönlümden yar eledim. Yar olmazsa can olmaz ki bana dedi. Yar olmazsa kar olmaz ki bana dedi. Yüreğime hançer değdi. Yar dedi. Yar olmazsa can olmaz ki bana dedi. Yar olmazsa kar olmaz ki bana dedi. Yüreğime hançer değdi. Yar dedi.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Like,
pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you both for the song and for also sharing your story with us today. And
thank you. Bye-bye.
See you later. Thank you. And am I seeing Didem joining us now?
Yes, you are. But do we still have time? I don't want to mess up the schedule.
We always have time for like successful and inspiring women's stories. I do hear you. Can you hear me? I think we are having a connection problem. Okay, I think we are still having an internet connection problem. So today we are discussing breaking the bias, marking the International Women's Day. And this conversation is organized by the Circle Foundation in the UK. It's a non-profit, independent and non-partisan think tank based here in London. I think we have lost Didem, but I think we have Yasemin here. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Hello, Yasemin. Welcome. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Let me introduce you. Dr. Yasemin Allsop. She's an academician and a role model in education. She's a lecturer in primary education at the Institute of Education at the University College London, and her researches focus on children's thinking and learning when designing digital games. She is also the co-editor and International Journal of Computer Science Education in Schools and the author of children's book Alia, the Path Maker. Hello again, Yasemin, and thank you for joining us. So let me start with breaking the bias. What does it mean for you?
I guess it means working towards an equal world for everyone, which means that you need to stand against both conscious and unconscious stereotyping, which might be related to your gender, but it might also be related to your religion, your background, your ethnicity. You know, there are so many variables. So literally standing up against these with your actions, with your, I don't know, thinking, working hard and showing people that they're wrong.
So you have been awarded by the prestigious member of the British Empire by Queen Elizabeth II for your services to education and to children and families from disadvantaged backgrounds. Like, it must be such an honor. Can you tell us more about your story?
That's quite an interesting one because, you know, we don't really know who nominated us until so long later. You know, I didn't know at that point. You find out about it later on, that your students, the parents, they all, you know, wrote letters, but you don't know about it when it happened, you know. So it's quite fascinating how you may forget in your busy life what you have done in the past, but those children never do. Children and parents, they always remember you and what you have done for their, you know, for them, for their children. I traveled the world with my students when I was a primary school teacher. We won so many awards. We literally went to San Francisco, to Silicon Valley. We went to New York, had a lunch with Mayor of New York, Bloomberg. It was him then. You know, we done so much stuff, but you don't see those as different than what you would do on a normal day in a school. So to me, it wasn't something fascinating. It was just what I had to do. It was my role, my job to me. But for children, it wasn't. They see value in, you know, whatever you do for them. They really appreciate you. They really look up to you. That's why I think having role models are really important. And I remember my head teacher saying to me how happy she was that computing was led by a female teacher in our school. To me, that is quite important, isn't it? You know, having that role model, maybe I would be able to inspire some of those children, because all our children were coming from many different backgrounds.
Yeah. So you must feel like you are touching to your students' lives. Like, if I were interviewing one of your students today, but not you, maybe if I asked them who their role model was, maybe they would name you. I think that's the honor you must feel.
That's
like
true. You're so right. You're so right.
Success,
absolutely.
I remember like many of my teachers, my female teachers, my male teachers as well, of course, but when you think of them, you remember the difference they made in your lives. So your studies mainly focus on education. And I have read somewhere that you believe that every children should learn coding. And why do you think the education or like technology education is important? Do you think educating children will make a difference?
But when we say coding, because we do need to clarify that when we say coding, we're not just thinking about the mechanical coding. Because, you know, as you code, you're actually using quite a lot of skills like creativity, problem solving, which are really, really important skills to teach children. But if you read my children's books, I think the most important skill to teach children is empathy. That's what we need to teach children. Understanding people's situations, understanding people, communicating with people, you know, this is probably the most important skill. I mean, you said it yourself, what's happening in Ukraine surely shows us how, you know, having empathy skills is so important. Only people with lack of empathy skills would do such a crazy things, right?
Yeah.
So that is the skill we need to teach children. Coding. We can use coding to teach children creativity, problem solving, and all those skill set that will help them with their life, with their future. But if we don't teach them empathy, if we don't teach them people skills, communications, then, you know, that coding skill on its own is not going to be much useful. They will have to work with other people at some point, they like it or not.
Yeah.
So they need that people skill, don't they?
And what is your advice to young women researchers and academicians?
I will say take small steps. Don't expect to do too much in one go. Take small steps. Focus on your research, but try to develop yourself, you know, in the whole. You know, spend some time for your interests, for your hobbies as well, not just for your daily work. Because, you know, sometimes people say, oh, I'm going to do that when I retire. No, you're not going to do that when you retire.
You won't have time for that. Yeah.
Exactly. Do it now. Do it now. You are feeling, you know, you feel, don't you, when you want to do something. You don't want to wait. You don't want to lose that spark. Do it that time. Like, you know, writing children's books. I always wanted to do that. And I was always saying, oh, I will do it when I retire. It doesn't work like that. If something comes to your mind and can't wait to get out of your mind, then let it go. So take it, you know, take it slowly. Focus on developing yourself in the whole, not just for your job, but all other skills that will actually help you to enjoy life. We need to enjoy life. Life is not just work.
Of course. No, that's a great advice.
Yeah.
I'll take it for myself too. Thank you very much.
That's all right.
Thank you for the advice and also joining for us and sharing
so
your
much.
stories.
Thank you for having me.
You. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I see Didem joining us back again. Yes? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. I can see you. We made it.
Great. Hi. That's amazing. So Didem Ün Ateş, she's a woman in technology and is the head of applied strategy, data and L at the CDO office of Microsoft Customer and Partner Solutions. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. So you have an incredible achievement in your career, but it's not only about your career, isn't it? So you said in an interview that it hasn't been a walk in the park for you, and you have turned a negative situation into a positive, escaping from domestic violence in the family. How did you do that? Can you share your story with us tonight?
Well, thank you so much. And so, by the way, sorry for the mouthful introduction. Our titles at Microsoft are horrible, so you did a great job. In terms of my story, I do have to say that I'm guessing a good chunk of our audience right now is actually experiencing some kind of violence at home or in their personal lives. It's just that, unfortunately. So it's a taboo to talk about it, but after decades, I was able to talk about this maybe 3-4 years ago, and I do try to talk about it because people need to feel that they are not alone, and there is always a positive something if you can look at it. So in short, my story is I absolutely love my parents. But I knew I couldn't stay in that environment. So I came up with a dream for myself. And the dream was to study electrical engineering and go to the US and study engineering so that I could be independent financially and personally. And of course, I had 2 obstacles, which I think will be very familiar to most of our audience. One was money. You know, my family's total income was a fraction of the cost for studying in the States, even annual one-year cost. And the second one was I was pretty sure, especially my father, would not allow me to go to the US at the age of 17. So basically, I applied secretly. My grandmother paid the application fees, which were significant for me at the time, like $50, $100 an application. And I got accepted, I got scholarship. I was basically choosing dormitories by the time I finally told my parents. And they both are big fans of education. For that, I'm very grateful to them. So they couldn't say no at that stage. But it was my first experience in turning a negative situation, actually a traumatic situation, into a positive for my dreams, for my path, for my journey. And it really, that experience stuck with me throughout my 25-year career. So being a female in technology is definitely not a walk in the park, as you mentioned. Thank you. But I had those muscles even with my own family and parents.
You have turned it
Bring
into
it
a
on.
walk in the park.
Exactly.
You've done it.
Hopefully. I wouldn't say walk in the park, but at least, you know, you kind of see the forest and the outcome.
No, I think that's a truly inspiring story, but also a great courage to be able to share that. And thank you so much for that. Like, truly and honestly, I think that needs a great courage to share it. And I want to ask your advice for like young students, like young women who are at the beginning of their career, or like who are about to choose a new path for their career.
I think I should suggest 3 or 4 areas. Absolutely one, is to believe in oneself. Break your own mental glass ceilings as fast as you possibly can, because if we don't believe in ourselves, others won't, and you have a negative spiral. So even if you kind of fake it until you make it, believe it in yourself. Second, values. If we are in an environment where you are not in line with the values, I try to understand if I can create a critical mass to speak up and make a positive change. If that's possible, I just get on with it. If I see that I won't have a critical mass, or it's going to be too risky for me, whatever, then I move on. So don't wait too long to move on. I have to say I'm incredibly grateful to Microsoft. I've been with the company for almost 10 years. The culture, the values of the company have allowed me to do the first one. And that, I feel, is part of my job too. It's not just doing the day-to-day job to bring in revenue or whatever, but actually making a positive change in the company as a role model. The third thing I would suggest is tribe, create our own tribes. I don't mean to say act tribally. I mean to say be fans of others and create fans for yourself. Because in this age, especially AI age, it is not possible to succeed alone. Nothing. I mean, unless you have a very specialist niche profession, it's always teamwork. It's always team spirit. So whatever your passion lies in, it could be diversity, inclusion, it could be engineering, whatever it is, make sure you have that, team spirit behind
and
you.
the empathy for others.
Exactly.
No, thank you so much for that. But I must add that, like, while I was speaking to Cagla, it's also an amazing story that you two are friends from high school, and like two like very successful women coming to these days together. I really appreciate that story as well. Do you want to say something about that?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much, because she was supposed to come to my house on Friday, and she has a last-minute guest or something. So I was telling her, like, this is the way we are meeting in London. So that's a joke, of course. No, it's such a pleasure to be. I mean, I think we were very fortunate to go to an amazing school. Period. And my son goes to certain schools in London because of that. Friends from that school, friends. It has such a domino effect. So all I can say is thank you to Cagla and everyone else. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for sharing your story. See you later. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And we will continue our conversation organized by the Circle Foundation in the UK. And now joining me is Nevsal Elevli. She is a journalist and the English correspondent for Milliyet newspaper. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. How are you? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm fine. Thank you.
So I want to start with our first question. What does breaking the bias mean for you?
It means for me to come across and to cancel every impossibility in front of you, and just think of yourself and what is best for you, and cut the rest. You got to believe in yourself first. how I did was I came to England like that. Because first when I came here, I only stayed 3 months with my uncle, and I loved here. I said, the freedom here is nice, the women are nice, it's free, they can smoke. And whereas my father was a strict person also, he was a army man, and you know, we didn't have that much freedom. So I put it in my mind. I said, I'm going to do my master's program in England. And that's how my story started here. So I would, obviously, when you are a woman and you are a young girl, all the things doesn't suit your family or your surroundings, or you're not used to it, especially if your background is like Turkish in a strict family. So I believe to young people, I have to advise them, believe in yourself and also go ahead what you think is right for you. And obviously take advice from your elders too, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And you are a very experienced journalist, and we know that media is one of the fields women are facing like many challenges, and I'm sure you must have faced those too. So
Of course.
can you tell me more about your story and the challenges you have faced?
Yes, of course. I wouldn't like to give names, obviously, but
Of course not.
there are.
We'll keep it between us.
Yes, we will. Of course, there are barriers for a woman, for instance, when there's a men's world and there's women. And if you are a little bit attractive, obviously, there could be things you may not like, or you may come across to it, which is obviously not very nice at the end of the day. But I believe if you are straightforward with yourself, you could overcome to those things. But sometimes, especially in developing countries or countries like ours, there is always, it's a men's world more than a woman's world. But I believe if we women stick together, and then I'm sure we will be surviving.
And what would your advice be to like young journalists, people who want to be reporters, journalists?
Yeah, what my advice to them would be, they should always read, and educate themselves and know everything. Believe in themselves, and be always honest and hardworking. And I believe then all the success is yours. It will be them. But always reading, and honesty is the main things for me.
Yeah.
And always, also, it is very nice to be a woman in this jobs. You know, women got more feelings, got more understanding. We make mothers. We make. I don't know, but it's a different feeling. You know, even God had seen this. You know, so only women can be mothers, not men. So I believe women are more stronger than men, but I don't know how. All over the world, it's men is more strong, but I'm sure there will be one day the woman will be ruling the world.
I think
coming on.
No, I think you have a point here, and I think maybe we should be talking about what's happening in Ukraine right now. Like all of us have been witnessing a human catastrophe, like people fleeing their country, but mostly women and children. And what's your take on this? Like they have shown a big resistance, fleeing their country, but also some of them staying in and fighting for their country. What do you, like, how do you feel as a woman journalist watching that woman fleeing their country or fighting for their country?
I do like their love to their country, especially the woman.
Yeah.
When I look at the back in some other countries, I could see the men leaving their wives and coming, leaving their own countries rather than fighting. Whereas in Ukraine, not many people left their countries except the children and the mothers or whoever they are. But the women were in their uniforms and with their guns, and that shows real love to their country. That's very I appreciate. But obviously, on the 21st century, I feel so sad. Things like this are happening. You know? It is very saddening, and it's very sad for children. And I've heard today one child, a young boy who had the leukemia, run from Ukraine for a treatment. And also sad stories. And obviously, both sides, both countries have faults in them. But I don't know. I'm not a government person to solve these problems, but I would like the war finishing and these sad things, stories going away. It's very sad. And as a journalist, I would have liked to be there actually, but I was able to go there. So something that occurred. So human, very sad. As a human, I feel very sad actually.
Yeah, that's
For babies, for children, it's not easy to live in a war. Thanks God, we never lived in the war, but read the stories when we watch those films, how those people suffer and those children when they grow up. It's not an easy.
It's such a trauma, isn't it?
It's a trauma. It's really sad. Bombs going on now. This nuclear place had been done. We don't know what damages would it give in the future. It's very sad. Hope soon it will come to an end and this will finish. Without much more bigger traumas, I believe.
Yeah, I really hope so. As I've said in our opening, yes, we are marking the day as International Women's Day, but I hope one day, not so far, we will be able to truly celebrate it. Nevsal, Elevli, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you for all your amazing ideas and story. Thank you so much.
Yes, good night.
Thank you. See you later. And moving on in our discussion, marking the International Women's Day with the Circle Foundation. Now joining me is Eylem, singer, songwriter, and performing. I'm sure like many of you know her from her amazing performances and like her hit songs.
Oh.
She is I do.
You're very kind.
I do remember your first song, Aman, in 2006. So Eylem is a Turkish-Cypriot singer born here in London. Thank you so much for joining us today. And
thank you so much. You look wonderful. Your energy is coming across wonderfully. So really happy to be part of this wonderful celebration that is woman.
We are so happy to have you, all of you today. And I am truly inspired by all of your stories. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh,
so let's start with breaking the bias. What does it mean for you?
For me, it's always been just being me, fearlessly, no shame, just carrying who I am. And that's, you can only be true to yourself. Has there been difficulties in sometimes if you have too much opinion, that can't be seen as you're pushy, or if you have too many ideas, sometimes, that can come across as powerful, pushy. But I've always just said I can carry and be me. I can't play anything else, and I've sort of stuck to that. And musically, that was a bit difficult. I mean, in the beginning, I was really like, no, this is what I want to do. And the thing is, when I wrote my songs, I was literally, I had the Turkish Oxford Dictionary, and I was looking up the words, and that's what I wanted. I wanted it in my own language. I'm London born. I'm proud of my heritage. And that's my story. And that's another thing, because we have this thing where we are proud of our heritage. And I am. And I wanted to incorporate that into my my music. And that's my story, because I was just like, who represents me? I'll like R&B, and then I'll hear Türk Sanat Müziği, or and that was my hello everyone, merhabalar. Turkey, we can see people from Turkey now, so
yes, we would like to send our best wishes to Turkey,
to everyone.
Yes, who are watching from Turkey and everywhere. No, I think that's amazing. What you talk about, like being yourself. This is like your talents and your background coming together and like bringing out the best in yourself, but also like making your career, isn't it? But like besides your career in music, you are not only a singer yourself, are you? You are an independent, self-produced artist. Like beside your success in music, you also have quite an achievement in business. So why did you decide to do that? Not only music, but also producing yourself.
So I never thought of myself as a difficult person, but as I was going on, I was realizing actually some of the songs, because I came out and I did hip hop, R&B, in 2006.
Yeah.
At this point, it wasn't as popular as it is now. We've got an amazing hip hop fusion going on.
I remember it very well. I remember your very first song, Aman Salla Dertleri. I remember it very well.
That's been so. That isn't for me as an artist now. As much as like there's the artist in me, there's this human, this compassionate, grateful person who's like, I started that with a melody.
Yeah.
That's exactly how Hayat Devam Eden started. I came out, I was laying down in bed and I was sort of like down about something, and I just heard this melody, and this melody was sad, but it was a hopeful sad. So Hayat Devam Eden. So I wanted to, so I knew I was talking about a sad subject, but I wanted to say, actually, with every hardship, you have a light at the end of the tunnel, and that's what I was. Elise, hello.
We have so many of your fans here.
People who follow my music, my career, they are my friends. They are my supporters. So thank you so much for your kind words. I'm always grateful, forever gratitude, because you must have love for this. Because sometimes, especially when you're independent, businesswoman, as a woman as well, because you're trying to balance the compassion and the love, as well as the same time, you're trying to fight this kind of like being firm, at the same time not losing who you are at the same time. So
there's something I would like to mention about this actually. So your parents are consulate in the UK, aren't they? So you yourself is you are raising awareness for your community, the Turkish-Cypriot community here in the UK. Can you tell me more about that? Like, we talk about music and we will talk more about that. But I think this is also important that you are using your influence to, raise awareness for your society and
that means
raise their voice.
And that's all we've ever done. I think we have, we've said Öf adet in Turkish, how to, what our culture means, but we're Londoners. I'm proud to be a Londoner too. We have to embrace this. There's none of this denying yourself. You are, this is our story, and so many people could relate. And I saw this when I used to go to Germany for concerts. The togetherness, like today, being on this platform with such successful Turkish women is for me a proud moment, and I embrace that. I have had, my nan was very strong. Nuritin Datsun. I have an amazing mum who's also a counsellor, very active. She's actually over there. I might have to call her in a little bit. She had a Zoom earlier on. When I see, even though she's doing stuff locally, like local counsellor, Nadia, not so blood, Janum, what she does is she makes sure people, she's doing her work, but she's also doing dolma and making sure that they've had their köfte but we're representing our culture this way. What better way to show who you are with food, music, culture, warmth, humanity? And this is what life really boils down to. All the these are the things that I think makes us human, and it goes back to that again.
And I see like you have grown up with so many women role models yourself, and I think this is how women make a difference in people's lives, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, if I hadn't there was never an option. I bought this jumper once in Istanbul, and it said what did it say? It said something like I don't want to hear it, yes you can. And that's my mum to a T. She'll say, okay, wipe your tears, put your lipstick on, take a deep in a way, because they have to survive. And I also want to talk on the subject about women with culture. We almost battle sometimes, don't we? Being that strong woman, or can we be, or cultural conditioning can sometimes give us of sort of like limitations. And I've never, my mum's always said, you don't limit yourself. You can do everything. You're not alone. And even with the path of music, it wasn't always very popular to do. It's very popular now. But I'm excited because I wanted to be my own record label, because I wasn't happy with the direction. You should sing this, you should do that. Oh, don't bother. I remember this. Do not write your own music. You can just get it from someone. And I used to be like, no, I don't do that. I want to
Yeah.
write my songs, you know, but I could have fallen into that trap. So if there's any, you know, singer-songwriters out there, write your own music, create your
Yeah.
own style, be you, because
No,
everyone else is taken.
that's amazing, and it has been a great, lovely conversation with you. As
Thank
much as
you.
I want to like go on with that,
Yes.
I'm afraid we are done with our time.
Oh.
And I see your fans sending like lots of messages, like they
Lots of-
miss you. And I asked Olcay to sing a song for us, and I think your fans would love that too. Do you mind like
you're
singing
very
a song, like singing a ending song for us? Like we
Bit
are about
croaky
to
today.
finish here. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Then, well, as you said, Aman, and
Yes, my favorite.
it's my first baby, so
It
that was
is,
my...
isn't it? Yeah.
We're ready then. And tüm dünyanın yükü bende olsa, bugün aşkım beni bıraksa, kalbimi bin defa da kırsa.